Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights at the May 2023 version of the Mills Investment Forum in Vancouver. And with me, I had the chairman of a newly put together company called Vizsla Copper, Craig Perry. Craig.
G'day, Joe.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
So Vizsla Copper, I mean, you've obviously had success with Vizsla Silver in Mexico. And now you've gone for this project surrounding a project called Wood Jam in BC. So tell us a little bit about, I know you're attracted to copper as I am. So why this project specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we love copper. You know, I think we're going to see $20 a pound copper in the not too distant future. So you must put your foot on as much copper as you can. And that's what we've done here. You know, when we started Vizsla 5 years ago, we actually started it as a copper business. We had some ground in central BC and we scoured the globe for copper projects. Stumbled across the Panuco project in Mexico, of course, and have been drilling there ever since. So, but we always wanted to come back. We've got a lot of our team have got a strong background in copper exploration, particularly porphyry copper exploration. So, you know, we've scoured the globe. I think in the past 3 or 4 years, we've kicked the tyres on probably 300 or 400 projects, serious DD on about 50, got to term sheets on about 20. But what we've found is that there's just not much out there in terms of good quality copper projects. We'd known about the Wood Jam projects for some time. We'd built up a friendship with Bill Morton and Glenn Garrett there at Consolidated Wood Jam a few years ago. And we've just been working in the background for the past 2 years to put our foot on the project. We spun Vizsla Copper out of Vizsla Silver 18 months ago. In specie distributed all of that stock to our shareholders there, our good supportive shareholders of Vizsla Silver. Did a little financing then, and then worked in the background to get this project. But as I say, it took us 2 years, and we put all of that effort in because of the nature of the project. It's an extraordinary project. We paid $11 million for the company. That gives us nearly 2 billion pounds of copper in the ground at the moment, 1 million ounces of gold on the books right now. Grade's a little bit low, 0.4% copper, but you know, one of my objectives is to sort of dispel the myth that all BC porphyries are low grade. and you know, we mentioned before New Afton, which is, you know, nearly 100 million tonnes at 1.2% copper equivalent. Here on this project, and of course, we sit right south of Mount Polly. The property's about 10 kilometres south of Mount Polly. Mount Polly put out a drill result last week, for example, or Imperial Metals, I should say, of about 160 metres at 0.5% copper, half a gram gold. So some good high grades there. We know they're in the system. But once we got into the database, we were quite astonished with what we saw. You know, there are drill holes on the property, for example, on our Deerhorn project, that intersected 150 metres at 2.6 grams per tonne gold and 0.4% copper. So, you know, we know there's high grade there. A lot of this, the discovery of the higher, structurally controlled higher grade mineralisation was made after Goldfields pulled out of the project in 2013. So a lot of that hasn't been incorporated into the resource base. So Goldfields spent up to 2013 spent 30 million and drilled nearly 120,000 metres.
Wow. And they built the resource?
They built the resource. So all of the resource works pre-2013. So there's a few pieces of low-hanging fruit there, if you like. We can, you know, bring the higher grade zones into a resource base, update the resource base. But what we'll be doing, we just raised $6 million, which we're closing today, or closed yesterday, I should say. And that'll give us an 8,000 metre drill campaign come June. And the low-hanging fruit is simply to drill around those high-grade zones, look to extend those high-grade zones of mineralisation, and look to build up an inventory of much higher-grade mineralisation than is there at the moment.
So how deep do these high-grade zones go?
Typically, you know...
Well, how deep have they been tested?
How deep have they been tested, yeah. Look, really, there are a few deeper holes, like 500 metre deep holes, but not many really deep holes. Most of the most of the resource sits within 300 metres of
'Cause
surface.
they were just doing open pit.
That's right. And some of that outcrops. And I think, we did a mag survey recently, the results of which were astonishing to my mind. I've been doing porphyry copper exploration for 20 years. And, whenever I've done a mag survey over a property that's prospective, I'll always be happy if you get a handful of mag anomalies. Here we came up with 103 discrete magnetic anomalies, a number of which are the classic sort of magnetite destruction related donut anomalies. So they're, screaming walk-up drill targets. We're very judicious about how we spend our investors' dollars. We want to put it into the most effective things we can. And here it will be testing those high-grade zones further, fleshing those out, bringing them into the resource base. But I do want to dedicate some of the budget come June to testing some of these other, particularly the really beautiful looking donut anomalies we've got. But, 103 targets. What we're finding on the ground, since we've been up there, one of the first things that we saw is that in the core, some of these porphyries, it's interesting. It's an interesting part of the Earth's crust because you've got calc-alkalic and calc-alkaline and alkalic porphyries. It's clearly a long-lived magmatic system.
Are they different ages?
Different ages, yep. And some of these, the anomalies, the drilling that's been done hint to these pencil-like porphyry bodies. And the thing that the rocks look like most to me are the North Parkes type porphyries. Classic pencil-like porphyries, very highly potassic altered cyanidic rocks that carried, really good gold grade. And I think North Parkes, there were over 40 porphyries discovered in that field, 3 or 4 of which were very high grade, 1.5% copper equivalent type grades.
And that was a mix of open pit and underground, or was it mostly?
Mix of open pit, very big block cave there, of course. Rio Tinto sold that. I worked for Rio Tinto for 10 years. They sold that about 6 or 7 years ago for 800 million.
I remember they bought it from North when they acquired
That's
North.
exactly, that's right.
I worked for both North and...
Did you? My wife worked for North as well, in the Pilbara.
I worked in Argentina and Chile and Peru for them.
There you go. Very good. So, I guess what that points to is that you can have a feel with a lot of these pencil-like porphyries, and so I suspect a lot of these mag targets will be porphyries. How do you rank and prioritise those? That's a bit tough, 103 targets. But
you're just going to test them to confirm that's what they are.
Exactly, to start.
Not getting a resource right away, but just testing as many of them.
Spot on. See what we come up with. But focus right now, high impact drilling. You can never guarantee good results, but some of these high grade zones are completely open. So testing around those and fleshing those zones out to start. We'll go and test some of these other targets to start with here. We're doing a ZTEM survey that should kick off this coming week.
And you can see really deep with those.
See really deep and get a really good handle, at Surge Copper, where we're the major shareholder. ZTEM's proven very useful at sort of delineating some structural controls on things as well. So we'll do that and rank and prioritise those and go from there. But my target here, whilst we've got a big lower grade 0.4% copper resource, I think there's every opportunity to come up with a sort of new Afton type resource, somewhere between 50 and 100 million tonnes at around 1%. That'd do just fine as a starter project. And bring us into serious copper and gold production.
So we're expecting 6,000 meters. Is there any sort of access limitations weather-wise, or can you
good question.
Be over all year?
No, so 8,000 meters is the plan. Although we were pleasantly surprised with the support from the market on this financing. We went to raise 4.5-5 million, and the book's now well over 6 million, so we can take a little bit more money there. We may look to expand that drill program to sort of 9,000 or 10,000 metres, but watch this space. You're kicking that off late June. That should give us sort of 20 to 25 holes, the bulk of it on those high-grade zones again, and then testing some of these other targets as well. Sorry, and year round. Yeah. I should have said. Look, it's a great part of the world because you've got all of the sort of roads and things through that across the property. There's logging roads and a lot of logging everywhere. In fact, we were up there a couple of weeks ago and found a new zone of copper mineralisation that hadn't been previously exposed due to a new logging road.
Right.
So, the loggers are helping us find copper, which is great. There's power to the property, but it's very flat, benign terrain, so we can operate year round.
Are you doing an
without
aeromag
helicopters.
survey on it, or have you thought about that?
We did an aeromag survey. This ZTEM, of course, is heli-borne, and we haven't covered all of the property just yet in mag, so we'll probably look to do that as well.
Okay. Did they do any with Goldfields?
They did a little bit, but it was very coarse data. They did some IP as well, and what we found was that IP is quite effective at delineating some of these higher grade zones.
Right. Within the mag.
That's right. So we found that ZTEM is very, very effective. At this stage, we're covering part of the property, the most prospective part with ZTEM, but we'll probably look to expand that in the near future as well. But what I can tell you is there's just mineralisation all across the property, and having 103 targets, I think we're a very good chance of finding something, a North Parkes lookalike. And in a rising copper and gold price environment, that existing resource base will have serious value.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Greg. That was Greg Perry, chairman of Vizsla Copper, that's starting a new drill program in the Wood Jam area of northern British Columbia, looking for copper and gold. That's it for me, Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights at the May 2023 edition of the Middles Investment Forum. Thank you very much.